Hello, folks. Back with more ancient cosmology, and so let's see. I didn't get to really show all the details of the Gobekli Vulture stone last time, Pillar 43. So, I was kind of doing a few different things in the last video, so this one I'm going to focus more on this. So these are some posters I just printed out. I'm post these around town. Hopefully get my YouTube channel thriving somehow. But all right, so I don't know. There might be maybe it'll be better to use the version on computer. It might be a little brighter. So let's see. So this is Pillar 43 in Enclosure D at Gobekli Tepe. It's often called the oldest temple on Earth. It's 12,000 years old. It's in Turkish Kurdistan, historical Armenia, northern Euphrates area. And so yeah, it's basically in Turkey near the border with Syria. So this is the most richly decorated, or certainly one of the most richly decorated stones at Gobekli Tepe. It's in the oldest enclosure D, which is the 12,000-year-old one, and it's the most famous, carving at Gobekli Tepe. It's commonly called the Vulture stone, based on the identification of this bird being a vulture. I'm not even sure if that's exactly true. Like, I'm not a birdologist enough to know, but I know that the archaeologists misidentify a lot of stuff, so all I can say for sure is it's a bird. But anyway, so this one I tried to include everything. So North America, like this bird, seems to basically represent all of North America, even though there are also other critters inside North America. Like, this one is basically the east coast of the U.S., with Delmarva Peninsula as its head, or its head. But and then these are in basically Canada and Alaska. But the fact that this guy's feet seem to be, go down to Panama, I'm guessing that he basically represents everything, even though these guys also represent part of it. And so the fact that his other wing, it's like one wing, his head is New Orleans, his wing here is the Yucatan Peninsula holding the sun as, or presumably the sun, and the soul, and an egg probably, and a disembodied head, in the form of scorpion reef there. But anyway, since it has this other wing going this way, like, one way that I figured this out, that this is what this is that this is kind of looks a bit like Florida, and but it's the fact that between these two critters, there's just this kind of like design. It's been described by archaeologists as wheat fields, probably the original, kind of Elysian fields, Sekhet Aru. But I think, that connects them. So that shows that as opposed to this guy who's just surrounded by nothing, these are like part of the mainland. So, that's basically connecting. I mean, I zoomed in enough on his head that there's not even really space between them to put that here. But that's the idea. It's basically connecting New Orleans, which is like right around here, and then, Appalachia, which is over here. But over on this side, we have this blank area above the wing. Like there's the fields of, wheat or something on the top. And then there's this blank area between that and the wing. So I suspect that this is showing the Salish Sea here, sans Vancouver Island. And I'm sure Vancouver Island is on this map, but it's probably like, basically they will not excavate. The Turkish government has stopped all excavation here. So they will just, they've said maybe in 200 years or something it will be excavated, but now, no, we must save it. And so anyway, it sounds like they might know what it really is, and they don't want people to figure this type of stuff out. But, because a lot of elites are like Freemasons and stuff, so they understand some of this symbolic science better than normies do. But anyway, so yeah, I suspect, and also the fact that there's a very strong similarity between the shape of the Olympic Peninsula here. Like this is where Seattle is right here. This is where Vancouver City is, and that's Vancouver Island. Or no, I guess Vancouver City's right here. Which may also be another iteration of the face, like turned the other way, like a smaller. Like this is all smaller than like the Yucatan. The Yucatan is much larger than, it's a much larger peninsula than the Olympic is, but they're somewhat similar in shape. And there is a tendency in these type of traditions to focus on anything that's similarly shaped and make use of that. So that's why Easter Island is called Rapa Nui, which means, which is based on another island called Rapa, I believe. So it means New Rapa or something. So this thing of like naming things and categorizing geography by other similarly shaped geography is, I think, pretty well attested throughout, the Americas and Australia, Papua, etc. So anyway, I'm going to go through this. I think some of this might be a little erroneous, but it's hard to know. Like these shapes up here, they're often called handbags. They're kind of esoteric, I mean, they kind of have to be esoteric a bit because they're all the same exact shape, and whereas the actual land is not 3 consecutive identical shapes per se, even though there are similarities. So I suspect that the shape overall is actually based on this entire area of Canada, basically Canada altogether, where, people call it a handbag. It's not really, couldn't actually be a handbag because it sticks, the so-called handle is not centered on the bag, so it wouldn't function as a bag. Or if it, it would just be like wobbling the entire time you're trying to hold it. It's just like tilting one direction. So I don't think it was ever a bag. But I think these are caves, because the rest of the imagery is all naturalistic, and other than the human figure and his disembodied head, it's all basically animals and nature, like animals and then some kind of plants, and the Great Lakes here, more plants, and then these things. So it seems like they're probably something naturalistic as well, and I suspect they're caves. That is kind of like a hill that's has a cave entrance, cave or kind of rock shelter or something, like an overhanging rock structure that has basically a cave, and then that this would all be the base of the mountain or the rock or something beneath the entrance, and it stretches further to one side on each of them, or it only goes on to one side past the roof, goes to the right on each of them. So I suspect that's fundamentally inspired by this entire region, and that the roof of the cave is fundamentally inspired by Baffin Island here, and these like Melville Peninsula here, and just how this forms this kind of perfect handle or a perfect roof for this kind of cave of water, Hudson Bay, which is like, Hudson Bay is, sorry, I scratched my arm. It's the largest, bay of or gulf or anything in America other than the Gulf of Mexico. And yeah, so it's at least half the size. I don't think it's quite as big as the Gulf of Mexico, but it's not too much smaller. So it certainly is, I would say, the defining feature of Canada if we're talking about like natural landmarks of the coasts. So yeah, I think like this one, and this one is showing basically Quebec area with Newfoundland as the guardian, the gatekeeper. So in some way, maybe this reflects like the entire thing as well, because if we say the entire, thing has a roof which is or includes Baffin Island, and then this is the major cave, and then below it is the rock or the base of the hill going this way, and then on top of that is the gatekeeper there. So this in some ways can be taken both to mean just this area and to some extent the entire area. but I'm suspecting, I was thinking that these shapes do probably represent the entire area and this cave, this as a cave, and it's probably related to the Norse concept of America being called Hell, which basically means cave. And the Norse, when they arrived here, they they named it Helluland, which same etymology, means land of caves. So it may refer to these kind of coastal bays that are treated as caves. Um, so so I was thinking that the fact that they're taken to represent the three sections here, that might also just be because the individual sections are somewhat shaped like that as well. Like that either the roof here could be like this part of Quebec, like basically northern Quebec, or it could be a different orientation like that, as right as up, and then this part of like basically, you know, Labrador is like the roof. And then, so that's what I put here is basically, put like Alaska, guarded by Victoria Islands, Bird Islands, and then C as Nunavut, guarded by Baffin Island, and then E as, and that's fundamentally correct, I think, but I think I may have erred in putting the letters inside the cavity of it, inside the cave itself, because, there's a good chance, now that I really think of it, that the cave part just only refers to bays and gulfs and inlets and whatnot. So the main one, of course, would be this one. And so Baffin both guards the roof of this cave, and is the roof of this cave. So that's a common thing, just like the fact that Central America, like Panama, both is the feet of, or part of the feet at least, of this, bird, but also is the head of this bird, and also is this snake and this dog. Those are all the same place, basically. So that fits with this, where you have Baffin is guarding the roof, but Baffin also is the roof of the cave. So that's the most obvious one, is Baffin guarding Hudson Bay. But, second most obvious is, of course, Newfoundland guarding and being a roof, with the right up orientation, basically, like that this is the roof of this cave, and this is, the Gulf of St. Lawrence, which is, one of the largest bays or inlets in America, maybe third largest. And so again, Newfoundland both guards the roof of the cave and is the roof of the cave, or at least its most important part, and it connects here with whatever that is, Prince Edward Island or Cape Breton Island or whatever, next to Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. But less clear or less obvious is this cave here, which is guarded by Victoria here in Nunavut. So chances are that this cave is primarily this waterway here between Victoria Island and the this mainland peninsula, which is like the northernmost part of America. I think it's called Boothia Peninsula. So these, there's like basically a bay type of sea Gulf thing in here. I think there's a couple names for the different parts of it. And also along here, harder to see in this photo, but there are waterways like between Victoria and Canada's mainland there. And also there's more or less of a little sea between Victoria and the mainland, and I think it's called Banks Island here. So yeah, it's not the best for showing those guys, but I'll try to find something better. Yeah. All right. So now that I've explained that, so that these are potentially misplaced, since, these are on land, whereas they should probably be in the water, since I'm relating it to these cavities, these caves. So keep in mind that that's likely erroneous, I believe. But other than that, the regions are correct, I believe. So this is A is Alaska, also includes, here I think is Yukon and the northwest